Salutations, respected viewers. This is George from Ireland. In this video, I shall outline why the United States ought to sign up to the International Criminal Court. The International Criminal Court was set up about 20 years ago, and it grew out of a tradition of internationalized justice, which goes back to the 19th century. There's the International Court of Justice at The Hague, and the United States is signed up to that. It's arbitrated all sorts of international disputes. And there's been the Geneva Convention and so on after the First World War. It was in the Treaty of Versailles that International Criminal Tribunal would be impaneled to try the Kaiser, that's the German emperor. In the end, that actually didn't happen, but there was still the germ of this idea of international justice, of people for certain grave crimes being subject not to the jurisdiction of a particular sovereign state, but to international jurisdiction. With the League of Nations and with the United Nations, this idea has advanced because when it comes to the crimes of one nationality committing against another, countries tend to be too chauvinistic, too blindly defensive of their own citizens, saying, if my citizen committed this crime, it's acceptable, or if my citizen allegedly suffered something, even if that something was lawful, then the citizens of the country must be punished. So trying to get away from this narrowly defensive and partisan way of treating crimes when they cross borders like this, particularly in times of conflict. So the majority of nations in the world support the ICC, and Tony Blair, who was an outspoken ally of the United States, he was one of the people who was most enthused by the idea of the ICC. And it's richly ironic that the United States has set its face against submitting its citizens to the jurisdiction of the ICC, bearing in mind the United States was a prime mover behind international justice up until this point. And I include the International Court of Justice in The Hague, Woodrow Wilson's ideas around the time of the First World War about having these worldwide courts with a remit to try grave crimes against humanity wherever they occur by people of whichever nationality. Now, in fact, the United States didn't ratify the Treaty of Versailles, they did sign it. And then you could look at the Second World War, the International Military Tribunal at Nuremberg, and then likewise in Japan, there was an International Criminal Tribunal for crimes in the Far East, and so forth. And there are more examples. And the conflicts in the former Yugoslavia, well, the United States was instrumental in bringing people to justice who committed genocide there. And Raphael Lemkin, the man who coined the very word genocide, was an American citizen, and the United States was crucial in drawing up the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and so on, and this idea that there are certain rights which apply to all people in all countries, and therefore breaches of these rights are everybody's concern. And the United States helped bring Charles Taylor to justice for his crimes against humanity in Liberia. Likewise, when there was genocide in Rwanda, the United States assisted in bringing closure there with the judicial process. The US government often speaks out on human rights abuses in other countries, often rightly to do so. It's laudable that the United States should care about the well-being of people all around the globe. However, it's only fair that other countries should comment on the actions of the US government and what's happening inside the United States. So some have denounced this as legal imperialism, the way citizens of a particular nation state can be brought to book in front of a tribunal outside their home country. Legal imperialism, good or bad, imperialism can be a good thing. This is imperialism at its best. However, it is flagrantly and nauseatingly hypocritical of the US government to involve itself in the domestic affairs of other states, yet be apoplectic when other states comment on the behavior of the United States itself, both abroad and at home. It's laudable to try to bring greater justice in the world and to prevent people being mistreated. So the United States can't have it both ways. The US government cannot poke its nose into the affairs of other sovereign states and not expect the same treatment. The compliment is being returned by other nation states. So many Americans are acidulous in their reaction to this supposed infringement of their independence. Well, there will be a certain logic to that, so long as they also campaign for the United States to disengage from the affairs of other countries. But I would suggest this is a step forward if we care about people everywhere, and we don't want anyone to be abused, and people can't stand behind, hide behind national sovereignty. Now, I know there's head of state immunity and there's diplomatic immunity, I accept that. But generally speaking, people ought to face justice, even if they've committed crimes against the citizens of other countries. Now, there is ample evidence of crimes against humanity in Iraq and Afghanistan. It makes me retch, committed by all sides, by the likes of Al-Qaeda, by Ba'athists, by the Taliban, but also sometimes by the foreign forces, including the US military. The British Army has put its own men on trial for the murder of Bashir Musa. Actually, they were acquitted for that and other alleged crimes. I can't think off the top of my head of anyone convicted. Likewise, in Afghanistan, a British Marine who murdered a wounded Taliban fighter, he was found guilty by a British court, things like that. Hold your soldiers to a high standard. Now, we've got to take into account the conflict situation. Yes, it is acceptable to kill an enemy soldier in combat, but there's certain things which are not acceptable, which are killing someone who is no threat to you at all, who is not armed, who was under your control at that time, not who's maybe running away unarmed. That might be acceptable because he could later come and kill you, but at that time he was already in custody. No. There was an incident in Iraq when 14 unarmed Iraqi civilians were shot dead by the US military way back in 2003. It's redolent of what happened in Derry in 1972. The parachute regiment of the British Army killed 14 civilians, and we've never heard the end of it. It's regarded as an outright scandal in the United Kingdom and the Republic of Ireland, and there was a very lengthy, extensive and expensive investigation to get to the bottom of it. So that was that. But and obviously many people in America, particularly those who were aligned with the IRA, were fulminating about what happened in Derry. But when the US military does something similar, they don't want to know about it. They think it's entirely acceptable. Of course, there are broad-minded, decent Americans who say we've got to hold our troops to the same standard that we demand of other countries. We wouldn't tolerate it if it was our people being killed in this way. There was the Abu Ghraib prison where prisoners were certainly abused. There's absolutely ample evidence of that, and it's true the US has prosecuted some of its own troops for that and has jailed people for that. Things that people like Lindy England. Waterboarding went on a huge scale. People like Khalid Sheikh Mohammed waterboarded scores of times. I have no sympathy for him. He's a barbarian. He wanted to bring an absolutely savage system. Doesn't mean that waterboarding is necessarily right. It might not be torture, but it's certainly inhuman and degrading treatment. The Convention Against Torture, Inhuman and Degrading Treatment, signed in 1979. The United States is a signatory of that. It's a flagrant breach of that, and it didn't go on once or twice. Its state policy went on for years. Of those who were waterboarded, 25% of them were subsequently proved innocent. Think about that. Proved innocent. Not that they were not proved guilty. We'll let them out because we're not sure, but they're actually proved innocent. And it's shocking, and they were subjected to this horrific trauma, the sensation of drowning. Dick Cheney, former vice president, said he didn't lose a moment's sleep over that, has got absolutely no qualms of conscience, which is frightening and disgusting that he should do that. Well, then he can't complain if an enemy captures US military personnel and subjects them to the same treatment. I don't want them to suffer that. I don't want anyone to suffer that. So Cheney's inverted Blackstone's dictum. Blackstone was that 18th century British judge, very influential in American law as well, saying we'd rather free 10 guilty men than send one innocent man to prison. With Cheney sort of the other way around. He's very happy to punish innocent people rather than let a guilty one go. Which is a shocking inversion of justice. That the Afghan war diaries exposed by Bradley Manning and Edward Snowden, detailing in gruesome detail all the particulars of many crimes committed against Taliban fighters. Now, as I say, killing them in battle, that's permissible. Other things happened which weren't, killing civilians in huge numbers. I know this often happens in war, and incidentally, I'm not saying the Irish Army, the British Army have been blameless either. Now, the other countries which have not signed up to the ICC, notably India and China. However, they are more consistent. They do not preach about the behaviour of other governments, whereas the United States does, gratingly lectures others about their behaviour and constantly speaks with this moral high tone. So it's got to lead by example. This rhetoric about freedom and rights and so on has to be matched with action by the United States subjecting its military to the same international adjudication that it insists that other countries follow, after those conflicts which I already mentioned. So this self-congratulatory rhetoric about being the greatest country and the last hope of Earth and so on doesn't sit well with mass incarceration, the highest per capita rate of incarceration on the globe, with certainly inhuman and degrading treatment, arguably torture, with unfair trials and things of that nature, with many police killings of unarmed black men in particular. So there are 190 sovereign states in the world, at least 190. Of those, which was the last one to outlaw the execution of children? The last of all. Was it Saudi Arabia with its abysmal human rights record? Was it North Korea with its demented cult of the personality and savagely oppressive and cruel regime? Nope. The last country on earth to outlaw the execution of children was the United States, which is a shocking indictment of American politics that Congress wouldn't pass that. The Supreme Court had to do it. Well, judicial activism, just occasionally, it can be praiseworthy. So it was hypocritical, illogical, unjust, and sickening the United States will not sign up to the International Criminal Court. What's it afraid of? Politically motivated prosecutions? Well, anyone could be subjected to those, but that's fine for other nationalities, but not for Americans. No, I think the US should lead by example and subject its people to this. If there is evidence sufficient to support a prosecution, then yeah, they should be prosecuted, whichever nationality they come from. And I would take into account the conflict situation, make certain allowances, but there's got to be some sort of bottom line. This claim, but we were at war, that can't be a complete answer and bar to prosecution if soldiers really have committed crimes against humanity.